What's up, everyone? Thank you for joining this discussion with Karina and myself. Karina Popovich is someone who founded Makers of COVID 19, an organization of 170 plus members to make 82,000 plus units of PPE during the pandemic. She was honored on Teen Vogue's 21 Under 21 because of it, and she is someone who is a founder of many things: Connect with Tech, Wear Alpha, Makers for COVID 19, and many more. She's had experience at Microsoft and Amazon doing many things related to tech, 3D printing, engineering, computer science, so on and so forth. She's an amazing person with a great story and a lot of experience, so let's dive in and see how she's pioneering her own life and many things along with it.
I have a dream.
It's one small step for man.
I am the greatest.
You want something, go get it. Period.
Karina, I appreciate you taking the time to dive deep and we can get to know your story in full, but just to connect with you as well on a personal level.
Yeah, definitely. I am super happy to be here and can't wait to learn more about you, Anthony, and everything you're doing, and also share a little bit about myself.
Yeah, for sure. So when diving into your full story, like I said before, you have a wealth of experience at such a young age. Kudos on the 2-0 as the new year starts as well. But I know your parents were immigrants that came to America, but like what did they do growing up? Because I know you've seemed like you've always wanted to be in engineering and maybe not, we'll get into it, but what were they up to when they were younger?
Yeah, great, great questions. My parents immigrated from Ukraine, and back then, it's I always have a very fun time explaining this because not a lot of people get it, but frankly, I don't get it either because I wasn't there. But I kind of have this visual understanding of what happened, and really the best way to explain it is that as my parents were growing up, the communist regime ended. So everything was in
Mm.
so much disarray and chaos, and there was a ton of crime, to the point where if you weren't a criminal, you were a corrupt police officer. Um, and there was just really no,
Yeah.
and you could be, you know, a low key criminal, if that makes sense, who does business and, you know, for lack of better words, is just a hustler, and just
Mm.
tries to get money in ways that people didn't really, I guess, the country didn't really approve of at the time, but also weren't, the worst things ever. So my dad was doing just that. He was basically, buying produce and products in China and then bringing them over in Ukraine and then selling them.
Mm.
And he was involved in that sort of hustle and doing a lot of that. And that in itself has a ton of stories. Back then, Ukraine and everything just wasn't safe. So the amount of times that he's told me that he's been, in crazy, fast and furious Vin Diesel type
Oh
situation,
man.
is
Yeah.
he could write a book on it. I'll be honest. Crazy stuff, but that's the time that they were in. And a
Mm.
lot of what my mom did was really kind of, she was definitely laid back, very much a kind of school student focused person. She never really, she wanted to go into criminal investigation, but she never really ended up going there because at that young age, my parents immigrated here when they were 20, and my mom was 20 and my dad was 28. So my mom
Wow.
literally just finished high school. She was helping my dad out with the things that he was doing, and they got their green card and they came here, and then they, struggled through the whole immigration process, and that's kind of a little bit of their background.
Yeah, yeah, which is insane to think because you're 20 and like what if you had to leave to go to a whole different country? Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
You ever think about that?
I think about it all the time, and I think it, like, right, my mom was pregnant when she came to the US. She was pregnant with me. So
Wow.
come here to a new country when you're only 20 and to be pregnant and to have to start life all over again while being 20. It just
Yeah.
it blows my mind, but I always kind of think back on it and I think, there's so many struggles and experiences that I will never have to face because my parents faced for me. Like
Mm.
they've kind of, you know, given me this opportunity and now the best
Yeah.
that I can do is take advantage of it. And, you mentioned the wealth of experience and in my mind, I think, my parents struggled so much to get to where we are now. There's no reason why I shouldn't try and do everything, which, you know, is detrimental sometimes to my mental health and,
Yeah.
work-life balance, but
Mm.
it's definitely a driving force for me, constantly doing stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I would love to touch on that later on finding like the harmonization between
Yeah,
burnout and like productivity and efficient
yeah,
productivity, but we'll get to that. But I was gonna on that point too, I was gonna ask like you've from what I've read about and like digested myself, it seemed like you've always been into the path of engineering or like just being a builder or maker as you call it. Like was that always that way? Was it always set in stone for you in your mind, or did you stumble across it eventually?
yeah. So my journey was very interesting, I would say, because my coming here to the US, my dad had to take on an actual occupation. He decided it would be,
Mm.
becoming an electrician because that's what paid the bills, and it was just very situational. And at that time, I was growing up, so I always and I got very curious and interested and I loved, doing stuff hands on. Like I wanted to build and I wanted to make and from as early as I could remember I was, trying to light up a light bulb or doing some other
Mm.
sort of project. I remember I built a bridge out of popsicle sticks once. It was just always some sort of, desire in me to build and to make and over the years, I continued to pursue it. I would, take a robotics class in middle school. And then it wasn't until high school that I realized that what I loved doing was actually engineering. And that's when things kind of took a turn for me because you know, when you're a 10-year-old, you don't really think of gender differences. You kind of you're all the same. You're just trying to
True.
kids and have fun. But in high school, it really kind of hit me, and I had you know, a bunch of battles with imposter syndrome where I didn't think I was good enough, or it just felt like I didn't belong in that sphere. And that resulted in me kind of, trying to, for lack of better words, become one of the boys to fit into what I thought was my passion.
Mhm.
And then after doing that, I very quickly realized that, as much as I love engineering, it's not something that I ever want to do as a career. And the part about engineering that attracts me the most is the ability to be able to create and to make, which really, if you think about like all of my experiences, it kind of, makes sense because that's just something that I always did from a young age. So I realized that maybe going down the path of engineering is not the right direction, but going down the path of making the larger picture of starting a business, seeing it from start to finish, prototyping for that business if necessary, building to solve problems is kind of what I really wanted to do.
Mm. Yeah, that's actually a perfect point. I was waiting to bring up this quote. I thought it would fit somewhere in our conversation, but you said, and this is one of your tenets, you said, you don't have to build jet engines and make intense calculations to qualify for the title of an engineer. You can 3D print, build, and make things for fun and still be an engineer. Everyone has been an engineer at some point in their life. And I think not only is that spot on, but I've heard many top figureheads say that. I mean, to quote like the man at the Apex right now, like Elon says, within the next couple decades, like there should be more builders and makers instead of just finance people, because it might be automated in some sense, but it is crucial for everyone to know that they have that within them.
Absolutely. And I think as we're seeing right now, the powerful part here is intersectionality, being able
Mm,
to do different things and being able to see, the intersections of two worlds. Like me having a diverse background in engineering, and I have experience in coding and 3D printing and 3D modeling and a little bit of everything. I think that really kind of helps, not just with perspectives but also with just having a different way of thinking. And it's something that I I encourage other people to explore for themselves, because there's just in a world that we're moving into, it's kind of
mm.
hard to be competitive in the job force, or even just, you know, be competitive, period. Um, and not have some sort of technical background, not have some sort of, engineering mindset. So I think
Mm.
I think it's very vital that we all, embrace the inner engineers that we are, and stop, put a halt to this kind of dichotomy of you're either an engineer or you're not, because there's
Yeah,
just
it's how it used to seem. Like even the crazy thing, when I got to university, I declared as I was like psychology at one point, and then I was engineering. Um, and I liked solving problems even when I was younger. Like I liked math, but the institutional aspect of like not being rewarded for trying to overcome failure and like really work through things um, made me get into what I'm in now. Maybe I was you could say forced to be in it, or I was called, but either way, like I'm here now and I'm appreciative of it. But I've seen that I've always had that interest for building things, like you said.
exactly. And I think it's something that everyone has.
Mm,
It's just, some people choose to stop pursuing that passion for building and problem solving, in my mind, because they feel like it's no longer a path for them, because people feel like they have to choose. And as soon as they feel the slightest bit unwelcome in one direction, they move to another. And I think, that's definitely something that I felt. I've definitely had a lot of moments where I felt, kind of like, the engineering world is just not for me. Like, I care about how I dress. I like to get my nails done. I like the kind of girlier side of things, and there's just no room right now for that in engineering. And, you know, having those moments of unwelcomeness, I would say they've definitely pushed me away. And I've been able to do 3D printing and engineering at my own leisure, because I am very kind of at this point committed to it. But someone who might be less committed to engineering, this
mm.
would be a very, very good reason for them to not want to continue pursuing it or continue exploring it. And I think that's really not, you know we want to encourage more people to
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah, create an environment where they can thrive, which I was gonna go into the points that you said before with diversifying your skills. You worked as an intern at Amazon once and then Microsoft. I wanted to ask, maybe both are separate or maybe they're conjoined learnings, but when you were in these like huge tech companies, I don't know your involvement, but like, what did you take away from how they operate so well and how they churn out such amazing products and work?
Yeah, so I can definitely talk towards my experience in Amazon, because that was the most recent one. I was a
Mm,
software developer intern there, and I definitely, the kind of most vibrant parts of my memory of working there over this past summer definitely have to be the brand and the culture. um, it was definitely one of those scenarios where a lot of people really idolized the company. And I don't mean in a negative way. I actually found it to be very kind of warming to have, a central mission that everyone believed in. Like everyone believed in Amazon. Everyone wanted to see it succeed. and it was very much the agenda that the company itself was trying to push. Like the HR department would show us videos, and we would kind of watch these videos as training and really, you know, believe in the world that Amazon was trying to create. And that's kind of the one big takeaway that I learned, that, you know, in leadership, it's very important to get people to believe in the world that you're trying to create. And it's very important to help them visualize that,
Mm.
and that. I think that was one of my biggest takeaways. And the other kind of really big thing that I noticed and saw is the amount of opportunities that you have within a really large company. You get a ton of money, which is already a huge kind of barrier for most entrepreneurs, or really anyone who's trying to start anything. Um, you know, it's you get a bunch of money to do a project, and it's really great that you know, can you know, play around at someone's expense. But I also think
Yeah.
the other side of it is that there's a lot of structure, and there is a lot of, you know, a lot less room for flexibility, which is one of the things that I wasn't super eager for, because I'm very much the type of person that wants to, you know, dream big and do my own thing. But at the
Mm.
same time, I realized just how much value there is in working at a huge company like Amazon, because of the amount of resources that they provide, because of the amount of professional development that they do for you, and learning their infrastructure and learning their systems, which have been proven and are effective and get the job done, is huge for when you want to take that into your next step of life, or your startup, or whatever it is you want to do. And that's really kind of what I tried to do, really absorb these valuable skills and lessons, and really just take that with me.
Yeah, yeah. The having a label of being at a company, but also literally within the company, you have so much leverage, whether it's reaching out to other people or like
Yeah.
learning stuff within an organization. That's spot on. And which is cool too. So what was the duration in which you were at Amazon and then you started Makers for COVID-19, which was obviously this past year?
Yeah, so it's actually funny that you bring this up, because Makers for COVID-19, I started in March of
Mm.
2020. And I started my internship at Amazon in June, and ended in August. So I was doing both at the same time, and
Wow.
definitely definitely a whirlwind, very crazy. Would not recommend to anyone. Definitely focus on one, because I felt like, you know, and this is one of the things that I always kind of, I have a tug of war with, you know, my the amount of passions I have and the amount of things on my plate versus, you know, diving in super deep into one, and just, you know, focusing on that. And that was definitely a huge dilemma I had this summer, you know, having these two huge projects, you know, working for Amazon, and also doing Makers for COVID-19, which was, you know, ramping up and requiring a lot of my attention. Like, what do I focus on, and how do I spread myself evenly amongst the two of them, and, you know, sacrificing the fact that I won't be able to give 100% to one or the other, and
Mm.
I won't be able to get 100% out of one or the other. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I would love for you to give a one sentence on Makers for COVID-19, but then I'll ask and then we'll go from there. Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, so Makers for COVID-19 is a coalition of 350 plus 3D printer owners from around the world, who we kind of just got together and started 3D printing personal protective equipment as soon as we saw all the shortages, and as soon as we realized that 3D printing could actually be a viable solution at the time. And to date, we've donated 82,000 units of PPE. So we've been keeping busy this pandemic.
Incredible. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Which I really want to get into that heavily, but I know I said at the end I was going to bring up the point of harmonizing, doing a lot versus focusing on like one thing. So you could say like when you had the Amazon internship and then you started, I know Makers for COVID-19 before, but when they kind of intersected in the summer, like what did it force you to learn about prioritizing you could be like self-care or like mental health, right? Because I resonate. Like I really do want to push myself super hard sometimes, but sometimes my work bleeds into the night and I don't get enough sleep. So for you, what did you learn about that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I learned this summer um, was the importance of being able to, say no and delegate more and kind of take a step back sometimes. And I think, as far as self-care goes, I've I haven't really learned my lesson with self-care until really recently. And the lesson that I have learned that I had the hardest time learning, it took me a few years to learn this, but I realized that the more I invest in my happiness and myself, the more I invest in my productivity and my work. And a lot of that came from, I was one of those kids in high school that was like, if I did not work on weekends, then I felt like I was not good enough. I was not working enough. If I did not have headaches, if I did not, sleep a minimum of if I did not sleep less than 6 hours, like I was not doing enough. That was the mindset I was in. Versus now I've realized that, working weekends should not be a thing and should have never really been a thing. Um, Weekends, I completely shut off. I don't touch my laptop. I only focus on my friends and actually finding happiness. Like, I will walk into a room with people and I will think, you know, what do I do to make myself happy here? What conversation should I strike up? How do I get this to make me have a good time? And having that mindset where I'm purposely seeking happiness during like a set time of the week, which is for me Saturday and Sunday,
Mm.
has really made my productivity at a whole new level. Like it's kind of hard to put your finger on it or quantify it, but I almost feel like during the weekdays, Monday through Friday, I am a whole new level of productive and I bring a whole new level of, happiness to my work and things just work out. And
Mhm.
it's kind of like this euphoric experience where things are going the way I want them to. I'm handling situations better. And, I think it's because of this newfound energy to actually find my happiness and actually put effort into it. And it's definitely a realization that once you get there, for me it took a lot of just you know trial and error and finally realizing, but once you get there, I think it really changes your perspective on work and self-care.
Yeah, it's like the way of an engineering process, right? It's like trial and error, your way there. And then once you go, you're never going back.
Oh yeah, definitely not. I'm never going back, and I think it's the amount of changes that have come out of this whole kind of realization of work-life balance have been huge. Like, I
Mm.
feel like I'm more productive than I've ever been, and the most important part is I'm more efficient than I've ever been. And at the same time, I feel like every day I'm happy. And that's one of those things where it's like, I derive happiness from my work and from my routine and the things I do, and that's like a rare thing to come by, and it's so important.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. And to be focusing on it at the younger age is important because, like I always say to myself, I'd rather have that right than to have my financials be on check and then my mental health be decaying as I
Yeah.
get older. I'd rather be the other way around. But even Jeff Bezos, I actually saw this year in an article talking about Amazon before, right? He actually used to say work-life balance, but then he said work-life harmonization, and I thought it was a really cool word, just the aspect of harmonization. Um, but I wanted to, not to tail off too much, but I wanted to ask about 82,000 units of PPE. Like that is a lot of PPE. So I want to kind of open up and dissect how you guys were able to do that at such a high level, because it's kind of cool how it came together, right? You learned some stuff at Amazon, you learn this aspect of self-care and treating yourself better, investing in yourself so you can have a better output. So like, how did you delegate that with all of the 300 plus people with 3D printers and like get that to be such a high amount?
Yeah, it was definitely a huge team effort. We had 350 people who had 3D printers and were actively printing. We then had a team of executives. There was 18 of us, and we were in charge of actually kind of, for lack of better words, corralling everyone together and really leading all the projects that it took to make this happen. And on a high level of how this all worked out, we basically had our communication channels over Slack where we kind of, you know, nudged people, told people, hey, if you're not working on something, you should try and working on an order, and kind of, really communicated with everyone. And we also had our spreadsheet, and this is the spreadsheet where we had we still have it, and we still use it because we try to cater to any requests that are still ongoing. But we have this huge spreadsheet where we list out every single request we've ever gotten, and we have a system in which every one of our makers has access to that spreadsheet. And as soon as they see a request that they want to take on, they just move it to the in progress category of the spreadsheet. And we have a spreadsheet master. We have a bunch of people in charge of actually finding these requests and, calling up facilities, confirming, and doing all that work. And it all kind of comes together in the system of, people find these requests, they put them on the sheet. A maker then looks at the sheet every day and updates whether they've taken on that request or not. And then we have our spreadsheet master kind of making sure that everything's in order. And then you have people like me and a few other people who are, trying to delegate with all the makers and saying, hey, you're not working on anything. Is something going on? Do you need help with your 3D printer? Is something broken? Can we help you fix it? What can we do to get you on this other order or this other request? So kind of a bunch of back and forth, and it really took the whole village to make this happen.
Yeah, so you like fill in. I mean, that it definitely takes a whole village to do that, but it seemed like when there were some like leaks in the boat, you would just come in and fill those voids, kind of being like the overseer of like what's missing.
Yeah, definitely. I would say my role was one where I kind of was doing a little bit of everything. Sorry about that.
No,
um,
no, you're good.
I was doing a little bit of everything. I would be helping to find requests. I would be, you know, taking on the role of spreadsheet master from time to time just to make sure everything's in order. I would be pinging the makers to make sure that they're on top of their things. And I would work with the rest of the team members to work on other projects. We were constantly trying to build chapters in other countries because we were receiving requests from Kenya and Nigeria. So we figured,
Mm,
why ship over to them when we could just give their facilities money to do stuff that we're doing. So we had a team dedicated to doing that. We had a team dedicated to creating resources, whether it be, educational documents or even just collecting discount codes from suppliers. So we kind of had a bunch of things going on aside from the main kind of channel of what was going on.
mhm.
So juggling all of that and kind of leading that and providing insights was where I was.
Gotcha. Wow. And when you did bring up the international aspect of it, I did think of the Tanzania um, work you did with Connect with Tech at one point, and I was just like, because I did think of my friend before, and I brought her up, who's working on Impactive, my friend Krishna. But did you actually travel to Tanzania, or was it just like you did all this virtually?
Yeah, we did all of it virtually, which actually made it so much harder. But we basically, with Connect with Tech and the Hope School in Moshi, Tanzania, we basically built computers. I I took the summer to design a laptop to meet the school's needs, and basically we built 5 of them and sent those to the school so that they could have a computer science course. And the computer science course has been running ever since and teaching
Wow.
students. So I think it's in its 3rd year of running now.
That's
So
incredible.
yeah, it's definitely nice to kind of see the long-term impact of things like that.
Yeah, yeah, because you got the computer price down to pretty reasonable price, and you're able to make a couple. Um, yeah, that's cool. What is it like to? Because that's the whole thing with engineering, right? When people like build bridges or um, they create a rocket ship or whatever, like you want it to last for as long as possible. So like, what does it feel like to see that just continually growing or evolving?
It's definitely a really nice moment of like, wow, this wasn't just for nothing. This wasn't just like, something that I did to feel good about myself or to put on my resume. Like this is actually having an impact, and it's sticking. It's not it's something that can continue beyond me, and it provides enough value for it to continue beyond me. And I think, seeing that and seeing, the fact that it's working out, and like I said, it's sticking and providing value is just the best feeling ever.
Mhm, absolutely. And one thing that you're really, really adept in and like focused on, which we touched on a little bit, which you made the PPE out of was 3D printed mass, right? And I know 3D printing is big for you. You're in a lot of organizations with that. I actually did one little story, someone I hopefully can interview eventually. His name is David Aguya, and I believe he was born with no right forearm. And at the age of 9, he was really into Legos. And he decided at the age of 9 to build his first prototype of a prosthetic using Legos.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, this guy's incredible. And then as he got older, long story short, like he built this incredible Lego made prosthetic. And now he's at a university in somewhere in Europe, I think, and he's making, I think it's 3D printed or like reusable or using recycled material to have a better prosthetic that's actually functioning. And I was
Oh,
just like, this kid's incredible.
yeah.
Yeah. So, um, I was gonna ask you, like, what are your like? Do you want 3D printing to be more of a focus for you going forward? Because I know you're in the Dyson School of Economics, right, and Management, which is like more focused on that side of things. So, like, how are you envisioning to bring things together for yourself? Like, where do you want to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll start off by saying that I've definitely had my own fair share of dabbling in 3D printed prosthetics. And it's something that I'm looking to do a little bit more of. Um, it's super, super cool, and especially relevant for little kids who are constantly growing. So
Yeah,
having,
especially. Sorry to intersect, but like, biotech is going to start blowing up more and more. You know.
yeah, it's crazy because we're like this close to printing organs. Um, so it's
Mm.
it's really incredible all the wide applications of 3D printing, and we're only now kind of starting to really graze the surface of all the things that can be done with it. And I think for me, the way to kind of tie everything together, I'm realizing that what really matters for me, as much as I love 3D printing and as much as I love doing this work, there's way more there's way more kind of entrepreneurial spirit in me than there is anything else, which is why I think, you know, long term, I definitely see myself starting a startup. And
Mm.
whether that be in 3D printing or some other industry that I start to learn more of, that is something that I'll come to realize. But I think for me, 3D printing is definitely one of those things that I feel a natural kind of attraction and gravitation towards, and something that because of that I've learned a ton about. but maybe I'll learn a ton about something else, and maybe I'll take my entrepreneurial spirit in that direction. So I'm definitely
Mm.
very kind of a little, maybe even a little too open-minded about it. But I kind of like to say that, I'm just a leaf, and wherever the wind blows me, that is where I'll make the most of it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. And you'll put your best foot forward with whatever you do, which and you it's how it should be. I mean, talk about experimenting and stuff. It's like
Yeah,
um, at a younger age, you should be able to do that.
totally. And if you think about it, like I have no business being in the world of PPE or medicine. Like I ended up in this world of doctors and, you know,
Mm,
medicine by complete accident, knowing like I don't want to do pre-med ever. I don't want to do anything with medicine. That is not for me. Just funny because all of my friends are pre-med. Um, and all of them are, in this world. So like I kind of think about it, and I really like I have no business being here, but I am. And I figured out the world of PPE, and I figured out the world of making PPE, and I'll be able to figure out the next
mm,
thing that comes up. And that's kind of one of the other things that I've been working on lately, is just finding the confidence in my abilities to trust myself wherever I go. And just really knowing that, wherever I end up being, I will make the most of it, and trusting myself to get to where I need to be.
yeah, yeah, and I'm really really glad you brought that up because it resurfaced a question. I think one of the last ones I was gonna ask of in your process, because I read the bio on the makers for COVID-19, and you literally had to like learn how to make the PPE and do all this stuff from scratch. Like I think the learning process of something is really fascinating, and also it just shows like a growth mindset to be able to start from zero and accelerate forward. Um, in like a kind of bullet formed answer or like a step by step from what you can recall, like how did you go about learning making the PPE through the 3D printers?
Yeah, I definitely think my learning process was very interesting. It was a lot of just, first sitting down to do research, Googling all these things. And of course, I think people always underplay this, but gut instinct is so important. But
Like belief in something?
belief in something, or even just kind of, having a gut feeling that, sorry, tells you when something is right, and tells you when something doesn't feel right.
Mm,
So I just sat down to do a bunch of research, and I, after that, found a few files that I felt right about, and that I felt, I could 3D print. Because, at that time in the whole world of 3D printing PPE, there was a ton of files and a ton of things that people were printing that they should have never printed, because they did not have the right machinery to print it, because they did not have the right sanitary procedures to actually be producing those parts. And keeping that in mind, I stayed clear of making 3D printed N95 versions. I stayed clear from making ventilator valves for those reasons. And so I decided to just focus on face shields and ear savers. And I, set up the files on my printer and gave them a test print. And, the first few test prints didn't go super well, but that's kind of as expected. Did a little bit more trial and error, got them to a good point, and then, found someone who actually could use them, and reached out to that person. And
mm,
they, took them with open arms. And the same night I had pictures from them, because they were so thankful of the donation. So I think from there I really kind of saw that this could be something bigger. And I kind of, again, back to the gut instinct, I had a feeling that it could be something bigger. um, and I had a feeling that it would take a lot out of me if I wanted to do it. So I was a little hesitant at first, but then I kind of just dove into it, and lo and
mm.
behold, makers for COVID-19.
Yeah, incredible. That's definitely can't underplay the importance of timing, and like you said, gut feeling, but also I was literally just gonna ask, like what did you kind of tap into? Because it seems like there's a constant theme of trial and error and like persistence. I mean, you have this DNA of persistence as well. Your parents are immigrants. Like, what do you kind of tap into when it's like, dang, this is actually tougher than I thought? Or you just acknowledge it at the beginning and then you're like, all right, let's just take each step and walk this path.
Yeah, I definitely think it's the latter for me. I'm very much
Mm,
the type of person that, if I get a no or something fails, then Bill Gates said this, but then that just means I need to work harder. If something
yeah.
doesn't work out, then I didn't work hard enough. And that's just how I take things. And for me, I think, I saw how big initially this could get, and I saw how much work it would take, but I kind of just ended up doing it. And, you know, one thing led to another, and I just kept doing it. And, I took the challenge as it came, and it was one of those things where I had no choice but to take it. And I'm not the type of person to say no to a great opportunity. So I just kept taking more and more, and it just ended up working out in that direction. And I think, to your point about growth is super important, and it's one of the things that I really kind of live by. I think, growing is the most important thing you can do. Stepping up to a
Mm,
challenge, exploring yourself and all of your interests is huge. Like, I'm constantly exploring myself and all of my interests, and I have a ton of them, but so does everyone. And, a lot of people on my social media will see, oh, she's always doing a lot of things. And I will, say, like, yeah, you could be too. You just need to give yourself the chance and the room to actually explore and, have that mentality of, if something doesn't work out, you just need to work harder, or you need to do more of it. And you will get to the results that you're looking for if you have that mindset.
yeah, that's and those are words to live by, and it also points to I mean, you talked about happiness is obviously top priority. Like someone I really look up to, or I should say, learn from, is Tom Bilyeu. And Tom Bilyeu always talks about he created impact theory and Quest Nutrition. He talks about happiness is determined by progress, and maybe he took that from someone, but if you're not growing, you're often like kind of flatlining.
Yeah,
So yeah.
that that couldn't be truer. I think I try to live every day feeling happy, and uh, really kind of building up my accomplishments. I think every day should be treated like an accomplishment, whether you implemented a new work habit, or got everything done, or you even if you got most of the things done. I think every day should be one of those things where you're treating it like a challenge and taking it as an accomplishment at the end of the day. And the most important part, which I don't think enough people do, is actually letting the accomplishments sink in and letting yourself feel accomplished. Because I think too much
Mhm.
people are like caught in the chase, and they're like, okay, I did this, great, next thing. But you need to kind of like marinate in the
Mm.
accomplishment, and let yourself feel proud and confident. And that is really, and essentially, like you said, let yourself feel the growth, and feel the happiness and the pride in yourself, and that makes the biggest difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I love a lot of those words, like every single one of them, and I would love for you to plug anything you want people to follow your own stuff on your own social so they can follow you there. It'll all be in the description. But yeah,
Absolutely, definitely stay in touch with me on my Instagram. That is where you will find the most realist me. LinkedIn is a little professional, but you'll find the real me on Instagram, and my Instagram is just Karina.Popovich.
perfect. I follow her, and yeah, thank you so much. This was incredible.
Thank you so much, Anthony. I love talking to you. This was so much fun.